Deer hide is the tanned hide of any number of a variety of types of deer. It is generally a very soft, flexible, durable material, and most often chrome tanned. Let's start with a bit of history and then dive more into the details. Early societies used deer hides primarily for clothing and shelter. Its durability made it really valuable for making garments, moccasins, and living spaces. Native cultures in North America would use deer hide for clothing, footwear, and blankets. These hides were often tanned and then decorated with natural dyes and intricate beadwork. The deerskin trade between colonial America, Europeans, and the Native Americans was one of the most important trading relationships between them starting in the 1680s. At that time in Europe, there was a rise in interest in fashionable garments. So combined with a diversified fur trade, deerskin trading was very popular as well. For example, the Cherokee mainly traded their deerskins to the English, while the Shawnee primarily traded their deerskins to the French and English colonies before 1760. Deerskin became even more in demand in the 1800s as the popularity of beaver skin decreased. It was lesser known than the fur trade, but colonial deerskin exports were a really important source of raw material for the European markets. Today, deer hides are still used for many purposes. While traditionally, they were used in indigenous communities for day-to-day living, deer hides are now also used in fashion, sports, and the interior design industries. You could pretty much find it everywhere. Let's take a look at deer hide close up and give you a look zoomed in at exactly what this material is. So here's the top view, and it's pretty fascinating. You could see where the hair had been growing prior to the tanning process removing it, and you could see, a sort of ridge pattern among the grain texture of this hide surface. So it's really interesting because all that still remains. As a quality, top grain deer hide, you could see a lot of the marks that may have been made. And additionally, if you were to feel it, it would feel pretty soft, primarily due to the chrome tanning process. Taking a look at the bottom, we see an interesting grain pattern here. Fibers are going to be a little larger, a little more exposed. And when you feel it with your hand, it's going to have a bit of a fuzzy texture to it. So we could see even in this processed deer skin, there's still going to be pretty thick fibers compared to other types of leathers. Some are going to be thinner. Here it's kind of a middle of the road. Really interesting to see all of that exposed there. This is a great one. Here's a section view of the deer skin, and looking at the top, we see that really important kind of that full grain, the top layer that's going to be very dense, durable fiber structure. And that's what gives it a lot of the strength. And also the grain pattern is going to be most prevalent in that layer. As we move down, we begin to see that grain pattern open up a little bit. It's still going to be tighter towards the top. And then as we get to the bottom, we see it open up a lot more. We have larger fibers, more space in between them, and it's going to be a little less durable overall down there versus on the top. For the production process, we'll look at two different types. One, we'll look at the more historical process, and then we'll look at a more modern one. So traditionally, Native Americans crafted deer skin by removing excess elements from the top of the hide and then processing it with something called brain tanning, essentially soaking it in a mixture. This would help ensure the leather's softness and also that it would be durable and last a long time without degrading. Next, it would often be put into a tent over wood smoke. This would impart a bit of a dark brown honey color to the skin and also help enhance its water resistance. In more modern tanning practices that have evolved also at scale and for more commercial and production operations, the process is usually used is chrome tanning. And this is essentially where the hides are soaked in baths of chromium salts, and that kind of binds to the internal fibers and then allows it to take a much softer, more flexible finish look and feel to it. Also with that process, they'll typically do rounds of stretching and drying, thereby creating as large as possible a surface area of finished tan leather to use in all kinds of projects. Looking at cost, deer hide typically runs around $6 to $10 per square foot. And the key factors in there are going to be the type of hide, the quality of the hide, the quality of the tanning process, the quality of the tannery itself, and then if there's any kind of finishing layers or steps or textures applied to it. So there's going to be a pretty wide range. You could definitely find some more expensive, some less expensive, but in general, you're going to look to around $6 to $10 per square foot. There's a few really good pros to deer hide. One is that it's soft. It's a very flexible, soft to the touch, very comfortable leather, which makes it great for a lot of different applications, including clothing, linings, and things like that. It's also very durable. Although that combined with the softness makes a really unique combination that allows it to be used across a variety of leather goods rather than being restricted to one or another. It's also relatively lightweight, being that it is a chrome tan leather. It's going to have a little bit usually of a lighter, finished weight and density than a vegetable tan leather. So in that sense, when processed in that way, it's a really good light leather. Looking at the cons, they can have smaller hide sizes. So depending on the project that you're working on, you may have to take that into account to make sure that whatever you're making, you could either use with one piece or plan your seam lines or anything like that from a pattern perspective to take advantage of the space that you've got from that hide. And also, depending on the end use, you may need to factor in applying waterproofing to it. It can be a bit of a somewhat porous material, and so if you're looking to have any kind of protection or water or scratch resistance, that's something you have to factor in as an additional step in your process. Let's look at a few good uses. Deer hide is great for jackets, garments, accessories, archery equipment, bags, footwear. It's really good for things like pouches and gloves because it's very flexible and soft and strong. It can really be shaped and used for a lot of different things. Even moccasins. It's good for satchels. It's also really easy to stitch with. And so that's going to make it a little more versatile in that you can hand stitch it, machine stitch it, all kinds of things. So you could do dresses and you could do hats and pretty much anything that you'd want to explore. This will likely work well for you. A few tips for working with deer hide. One is that it's a very soft leather, so make sure that your tools are sharp. If you have a dull blade or something, it may kind of pull on that leather as you're cutting, while leaving some undesirable marks in your finished piece. Additionally, if you're going to be hand stitching it, make sure that you've got your system set up well for putting the holes in it. Since it is a very stretchy, flexible material, you're going to want to have those holes, obviously equidistant, and then your thread tension pretty consistent as well, because this will possibly bunch up if you're pulling it too tightly in some areas or not leaving enough room for that stitching to sit nicely. So just keep that in mind as well. It will look great, perform well, and be flexible. Just make sure you factor that in to your design. So there you have it, a look at deer hide. It's potentially one of the most oldest used types of leather. You can find examples of it throughout centuries in different cultures, way into the modern day today. It's very durable, light, and flexible. And if you choose to use it for a project, you'll likely find some really great results.